So we read about how when human beings answer to the touch of greater things, they slide back to the mud from which they climbed, because that's familiar to them, no? Something in them, perhaps the soul, might weep for the glory that they have missed or lost, but still they think it's best to be like everybody else, to be the common man. They think the best. To live as others live is their delight. And now this is this wonderful divine vision who is speaking, no? Now he explains why. For most are built on nature's early plan and owe small debt to a superior plane. The human average is their level pitch. A thinking animal's material range. In the long, ever-mounting hierarchy, in the stark economy of cosmic life, each creature to its appointed task and place is bound by his nature's form, his spirit's force. If this were easily disturbed, it would break the settled balance of created things. The perpetual order of the universe would tremble, and a gap yawn in woven fate. If men were not, and all were brilliant gods, the mediating stair would then be lost, by which the spirit, awake in matter, winds, accepting the circuits of the middle way. By heavy toil and slow aeonic steps, reaching the bright, miraculous fringe of God into the glory of the Oversoul. My will, my call is there in men and things. But the inconscient lies at the world's grey back and draws to its breast of night and death and sleep, imprisoned in its dark and dumb abyss. A little consciousness it lets escape, but jealous of the growing light, holds back close to the obscure edges of its cave, as if a fond, ignorant mother kept her child tied to her apron strings of nescience. The inconscient could not read without man's mind the mystery of the world its sleep has made. Man is its key to unlock a conscious door, but still it holds him dangled in its grasp. It draws its giant circle round his thoughts. It shuts his heart to the supernal light. A high and dazzling limit shines above, A black and blinding border rules below. His mind is closed between two firmaments. He seeks through words and images the truth, and poring on surfaces and brute outsides, or dipping cautious feet in shallow seas. Even his knowledge is an ignorance. He is barred out from his own inner depths. He cannot look on the face of the unknown. How shall he see with the omniscient's eyes? How shall he will with the omnipotent's force? Oh, too compassionate and eager dawn, leave to the circling eons tardy pace, and to the working of the inconscient will, leave to its imperfect light the earthly race. All shall be done by the long act of time. You will start, Bhavana?
Yes. For most are built on nature's early plan and hold small depth to a superior plane. The human average is the level which a thinking animal's material range.
So most human beings are built on nature's early plan, some kind of elementary early level, and they are not very much of them belongs to a higher plane. They owe only a small debt, only a small part of themselves to a higher plane. For most people, the human average is their level pitch. It doesn't soar very high, it doesn't sink very low, it's level. They are restricted by a thinking animal's material range, that limited range of experience, feeling, which the material animal body restricts us to. Martin?
In a long, ever-mounting hierarchy, in the star economy of cosmic life, each creature to its appointed task and place is bound by his nature's form, his spirit's form.
Yes. So it's as if there's a long stairway, an ever-mounting hierarchy with higher levels and lower levels, everything in its place. This is how the cosmic life is organized, in these levels, with interconnections of below and above. He says, in the stark economy of cosmic life, of universal life. This is how universal life is organized. Economy here doesn't have to do with money and budgeting, but just in the way things are arranged. Yes, stark is a word I always find it difficult to explain. It means unadorned, harsh and plain. Every creature, every single individual creature is tied to its appointed task, the work it has to do, and its appointed place in that hierarchy. The creatures can't move, they are tied to that particular level. They are bound, the place where they are bound to is determined by two things: the form of his nature interacting with the force of his inner spirit.
Including human beings.
This is including human beings. In fact, he's explaining why human beings on the whole don't go for higher experiences. And if perhaps they have one, then they slide back again.
How this is conform to the idea of the progress,
Yes, well, he's going to... Yeah. He's going to explain how we progress up that ladder. But first of all, he's saying that it's very important for that order to be established. That's what's explained in the next sentence. Chitra.
If this were easily disturbed, it would break the settled balance of fatal things. The perpetual order of the universe would tremble and got young in overwhelmed.
Yes. If this order could be very easily disturbed, if any small experience would shake it and move people to move out of their space, this settled balance of the universe would be broken. The perpetual order of the universe would tremble like an earthquake, and something might open up like a tear in your dress, a gap yawn in woven fate. Fate is woven together like a fabric in which everything is connected to everything else. So it is on purpose that it requires some kind of special impulse and some kind of special effort to make progress, to progress beyond our normal range, the range that we are bound to by two things, by the configuration of our nature and by the force, the strength of the spirit within us. If the spirit within us grows stronger, then we can move, we can progress, we can move up the ladder. Kamala.
If man were not and all were brilliant gods, the mediating star would then be lost, by which the spirit awakened matter went, accepting the circuits of the running way. By heavy toil and slow ionic steps, reaching the bright, miraculous field of God, into the glory of the focused soul.
Yes. So human beings are a particular level in this hierarchy. And if they were not there, and if everybody, everything, if they were all brilliant gods, then some level would be missing. There would be a gap in that ladder, in that stair, the mediating stair which leads up from the inconscient to the oversoul. He says that the spirit uses this ladder to wind its way up the spirit, awake in matter, winds up this stairway. It accepts the circuits, the circling movement that it has to go through in the middle way, this space in between heaven and earth, the middle way. No? The spirit winds with difficulty, with heavy toil, and slowly it's to rise up this ladder. It takes eons, immeasurable lengths of time to reach the bright, miraculous fringe of God, the borderline of the divine realm, and step into the glory of the Oversoul, the central being above.
But here he gives the way as capital W.
The middle way, yes, the path that we have to follow here in the middle of the stair. There's a rule for animals, each animal according to its own kind. There's a rule for human beings. There's a rule for higher beings. But the spirit accepts to follow the whole winding path. He says it accepts it. These circuits of the middle way. Makes the effort by heavy toil and slow aeonic steps. Reaches the bright, miraculous fringe of God. Janaka.
My will, my calling is there in man and things, but the inconscient lies at the world's great back, and draws to its breast of night and death and sleep.
Yes. Something is pulling us back. No? The divine will, the divine call is there in human beings, in things, in all things. But the inconscient, the unconscious origin is lying there at the back, no? At the world's grey back, in the area that we are not very conscious of. No? And it exerts a power of attraction. It draws towards it, to its breast of night and death and sleep. That is described so beautifully in the very first page of the poem, where there's the mind of night awake, knowing that the dawn is going to come, but wanting to go back to sleep. Just like us sometimes when we wake up in the morning, we think, oh, is it morning already? I want to go back to sleep. Yeah. So there's that pull of the inconscient, which is drawing us back into unconsciousness, into death, and into sleep, inertia, laziness.
But then here the position given off, and draws to its breast.
Its breast of. So its breast, what it's calling us back to, is made of night and death and sleep.
One thing is not clear to me, Shraddhavan. How can things progress? I mean, lifeless things. Maybe animals little bit, but lifeless things, how do they progress?
Well, it's not a conscious progress, but the force of evolution is working even in material things. No? Otherwise, how could life emerge at all? No? This progression has happened. Even the physicists tell us that from at the beginning of the universe, immediately after what they call the Big Bang, there was nothing like atoms. No? There was some kind of primal soup of plasm, that some evolution had to go on. And Sri Aurobindo tells us that that could only happen because present, even within those completely disaggregated particles, whatever they were, the divine consciousness was there. And this call is there in men and things. You might have heard me tell about one of Mother's disciples. He came and gave a talk here long ago, before we had these buildings. And he had had a dream or a vision or experience. He told Mother, I thought I was a pebble and I was lying on the beach with a lot of other pebbles, and you and Sri Aurobindo were there. And Mother said, yes, it's true. So something in the pebble, even the divine presence is there. The individual soul is beginning to form, that spark of divinity is beginning to form its psychic personality around it, through all the stages of evolution.
It's difficult, like metal, like iron. It ends its life and then it doesn't do anything. It doesn't. Of course, evolution as such has increased, helium and hydrogen. Then slowly there.
You know, there's this famous Bengali scientist, Jagdish Chandra Bose. He did experiments with plants, but he also did experiments with animals. With metals. And I think he was the one who discovered this process of metal fatigue, which is so important nowadays in manufacturing, that metals get stimulated and then they get tired and then they break. No? So he felt that he detected, I don't know how far his results have been recognized, but Sri Aurobindo recognized them, that even in metals there are some reactions which are akin to the reactions of plants. And we are carrying those kind of possibility of reacting in our matter. No? This is also matter. And we are told that the matter that we are made of has been produced in suns and stars. No? All these atoms and chemical elements that we're made up of, they've come to us from the so-called inanimate universe. But in fact, this energy that's driving the universe is actually the supreme conscious energy. It's just accepted this limitation to start its journey from night and death and sleep.
Things can evolve. I mean, they don't have any will as such.
No, they don't. That's why I say it's not conscious. And even in the plant, Sri Aurobindo says this consciousness is not expressed in what we would recognize as mental awareness. It's expressed in action. And yet that's enough to allow plants to communicate with each other, send warnings to each other.
They look for sunlight and they go there to the sunlight.
They get attracted to this. Yeah. And there are even trees. I was seeing this, that when there are too many animals eating from a particular kind of tree, it sends out chemical signals to all the other trees of that kind in the area, so that they produce bad taste and toxins in their leaves to discourage the animals from eating them. So it's really a kind of communication that's going on.
In a TEDx talk, the lady has proved this.
Yes.
The plants are communicating. Even the small plants, it sends the necessary
information, they exchange information. So we can't call that exactly a mental reaction, but that awareness is having its effect. No? The communication is going on.
As far as a plant level,
yes, so it's more difficult for you to understand it. But imagine, this is because the metal has no means to express itself.
Yeah. One metal will again become probably the same metal next birth.
Yeah, that's why.
They can't do anything about themselves, like even low-evolved cats or dogs even.
Yes, but they're being driven, as actually we are also being driven. No? That evolutionary force is driving them. And if it were not, of course, as you say, what could happen? But anyway, the steps are slow and aeonic. They take eons, immeasurable lengths of time. Who is next? Dhanalakshmi.
imprisoned in its dark and dumb abyss, a little consciousness it lets escape. But jealous of the growing light, holds back, close to the obscure edges of its cave, as if a fond, ignorant mother kept her child tied to her apron strings of nescience.
Mm-hmm. So you know this phrase, tied to the mother who keeps the child tied to her apron strings. She doesn't let it explore freely. No? So the inconscient is like that, like a fond, ignorant mother. No? It's imprisoned there in its dark and dumb abyss. It can't escape. But it lets a little consciousness escape. But it holds it back. It's jealous of that growing light. Doesn't want that little bit of consciousness to leave it and go towards the light. It holds it back close to the obscure edges of its cave. The inconscient is like a deep, dark, underground cave. No? Just like a fond, ignorant mother keeping her child tied to her apron strings of nescience, of not knowing. Sergei.
The inconscient could not read without man's mind. The mystery of the world yet sleep has made. Man is its key to unknown, the conscious world. But still it holds him dangled in its grasp. It draws a giant circle around his thoughts. It shuts his heart to the supreme love.
Yes. So the inconscient, that fond, ignorant mother, would not be able, without the mind of human beings, it wouldn't be able to read, it wouldn't be able to understand the mystery of the world it has itself made. But it's as if it has created this world in its sleep without knowing what it was doing. Like there are people who walk in their sleep and do all kinds of things. When they wake up, they don't know what they have done. So the inconscient nature needs man's mind to read the mystery of the world its sleep has made. So man, the human race, is like a key to unlock a conscious door, to allow the inconscient to become conscious. but it doesn't want to use that key. It still keeps him dangled in its grasp. It doesn't want to put him in the lock and unlock it. It limits his thoughts, it draws its giant circle of night and death and sleep around his thoughts, and it shuts his heart to the supernal light. That's why it's so difficult for us to progress. There's this drag of matter on us, this drag of unconsciousness. Leela.
A high and dazzling limit shines above, a black and blinding border moves below. His mind is closed between two firmaments.
Yes. So above is this high and dazzling limit, this golden lid above the head. And below is the inconscient, this black and blinding border where he can't go. So the human mind is closed between these two firmaments, these two fixed, firm, established things, limits.
Firmament is something that is firm.
It's something that's firm, yes.
Spanish is heaven, firmament.
Yeah.
Very strange.
Yeah, in the Bible, in the first book of the Bible, it says that God divided everything into two firmaments, no? Heaven and earth, and then there's this in between, the middle way. Narendra, please.
He seeks through words and images the truth, and pouring on surfaces and brute outsides, or dipping cautious feet in shallow seas, even his knowledge is an ignorance.
Yes. So, human beings, man, is seeking the truth. Something is driving him to seek the truth. But what are his instruments for beginning to know the truth? Words and images, pictures. And with his mind, he says, pouring. It means looking very carefully. If you have something wrong with your eyes, in order to see, you screw them up, pouring on surfaces. We see the surfaces of things. We see these rough, unrefined outsides of things. We don't see what is inside. Or another image for what human beings do is like going into a very cold sea, dipping cautious feet, carefully putting one's feet into the cold water in shallow seas and not daring to go deeper. So this means that human knowledge, even what we think of as knowledge, is an ignorance, a half knowledge, a knowledge that's limited, incomplete. Suresh.
He is barred out from his own inner depths. He cannot look on the face of the unknown. How shall he see with the omniscient eyes? How shall he be with the omnipotent force?
Yes. He, man, he's barred out from his own inner depths. Here we have bars on the window, so it's not easy for us to go out. Similarly, there are dark bars preventing us from going into our own inner depths. And we are not able to look on the face of the unknown. So how is man going to see in the way that the all-knowing sees? Omniscient, the all-knowing. He has some willpower, but how is he going to will with the force of the omnipotent, the all-powerful? So in his own way, just like Death earlier, he is discouraging Savitri. Kai.
Oh, too compassionate and eager dawn. Leave to the circling aeon's tardy pace, and to the working of the inconscient will. Leave to the imperfect light the earthly race. All shall be done by the long act of time.
Yes, he says you're in too much of a hurry. You have too much compassion. You're too eager. Be patient. Leave it to time, to the circling eons, tardy pace. He agrees it's tardy, it's slow, but in time, in their circling, they will come round to it. Leave it to the working of the inconscient will, that will which has been driving evolution forward, apparently without consciousness. Leave the earthly race, the human beings, to their imperfect light, to their ignorance. Everything will be done eventually by the long act of time. This sounds very like the mother speaking to King Aswapati in Book 3. She tells him almost the same thing. No? Wait, it'll all happen in its own good time. Don't be in such a hurry. Gomsun.
Although the race is bound by its own kind, the soul in man is greater than his fate. Over the oceans of time and space, disengaging from the cosmic commonality, by which all life is keen in grief and joy, delivered from the universal law. The sun-like, single, and transcendent spirit can blaze its way through the mind's barrier wall and burn alone in the eternal sky, inhabitant of a wide and endless calm.
Yes. So this is why progress happens. Because the soul in man is greater than his human destiny. We are not only our outer nature, our human nature. All of us have a divine nature within us. No? That is greater. And that inner spirit is above the wash and surge of time and space, as if time is a great ocean with its tides coming and going. Disengaging from the cosmic commonality by which all life is kin in grief and joy, it's possible for the soul within to detach itself from this law, universal law that binds all creatures, no? Which connects all life in grief and joy, in duality. Kin means a family relationship, close family relationship. The spirit can deliver itself from the universal law of nature because it is like a sun. The sun-like single and transparent spirit can blaze its way, can just burn its way through the mind's barrier wall. And it can rise up and burn alone in the eternal sky. It can live in this wide and endless calm. So that's what he's advising her to do. Sarojini.
Withdraw into thy luminous self, or else return to thy original mind. On a seat summit above thought and world, partner of my unthought eternity, be on with the infinity of my power, for thou art the world mother and the bride.
So he's telling Savitri, you can leave the world behind, you can leave the universe behind. You can just withdraw into your own self, which is full of light, and disregard the world outside. Or else you can return to your original power and strength on that seer summit above thought and world, where you have come from. You are an incarnation of the World Mother. You can go back to her. You can become a partner of my eternity, in which there are no hours. It is unhoured. There are no hours in my eternity, no passage of time. Become one, unite with my infinity of power, because you are, in fact, the World Mother and the bride, the partner of the Lord.
Out of the fruitless yearning of earth's life, out of her feeble, unconvincing dream, recovering wings that cross infinity, pass back into the power from which thou camest.
Yes. So withdraw out of this fruitless yearning of earth life. Here we are always yearning and longing for something, but our yearning doesn't have any fruit. Actually it does, but he says fruitless. Withdraw out of this feeble, unconvincing dream of earth. Find back those wings that you have, the wings of your spirit that can cross infinity. Pass back, merge back into that power of the Supreme Divine Mother, from which you came, from which you emerged into earth's light. Anandi.
And that thou canst not leave thy foliage flight, thy heart can rise from its unsatisfied thoughts, and feel the immortal and spiritual joy of a soul that never lost felicity.
Yes, you have the power to fly up like that, beyond form. Your heart can rise from these unsatisfied beats, and feel the immortal and spiritual joy of a soul that never lost felicity, that has never left its original bliss. Alice.
Lift up the fallen heart of love which flutters, cast down desires abyss into the gulfs. Forever rescued out of nature's shapes, discover what the aimless cycles want. There intertwined with all thy life has meant. Here vainly sought in a terrestrial form.
Yes. So, this fallen heart of love, it's fallen down into the earth. It's fluttering. It's like a bird with a broken wing trying to rise up, but it's been cast down, thrown down into this abyss of desire, into the gulfs. But you can be forever rescued out of these forms of nature. And then you will discover what all these aimless cycles of time are longing for, what they are wanting. There you will be intertwined. You will be able to embrace everything that your life has meant, the whole significance of your life. Here on earth, you are looking for it vainly, in vain, in a material form, in the form of Shraddhavan. But what you really want is something else, he says. Tone.
Break into eternity thy mortal mouth. Melt, lightning, into thy invisible flame. Clasp, ocean, deep into thyself thy wave. Happy forever in the embosoming surge. Grow one with the still passion of the depths.
Yes. So you can break your mortal mold, this body. You can abandon that. And you yourself, your luminous self, you will emerge into eternity. You are like a flash of lightning with all your force. Melt back into that invisible flame from which all your force has come. Your true being is vast, like an ocean. So ocean, be that ocean and embrace deep into thyself thy wave, this little human form of Savitri. Take it back into your vastness. It will be forever happy in that embosoming surge. The little individual wave will be blissfully absorbed back into the ocean. Unite with the still passion of the depths, that calm intensity of the deeps of your oceanic being.
Then Shraddhavan moved over and their life, leaving their limits, divining humanity, deciding into godless Savitri, lose their thyself into infinity Satyavana.
One more line.
Who miracle that though release their case, but Savitri
There cease. O miracle, where thou beganst, there cease. If you do that, if you dissolve, if you break your mortal mold, if you identify yourself with your oceanic original spirit, then you will know the lover and the Lord. And you will be leaving the limitations that divide you and Shraddhavan, him and thee. So you embrace him, Shraddhavan, into boundless Savitri, and you lose yourself into infinite Shraddhavan. Oh miracle, Where thou beganst, there cease. Melt back into your beginning and lose yourself in your origin. That will be the perfect fulfillment, he's telling her. For most are built on nature's early plan, and owe small debt to a superior plane. The human average is their level pitch, a thinking animal's material range. In the long, ever-mounting hierarchy, in the stark economy of cosmic life, each creature to its appointed task and place is bound by his nature's form, his spirit's force. If this were easily disturbed, it would break the settled balance of created things. The perpetual order of the universe would tremble, and a gap yawn in woven fate. If men were not, and all were brilliant gods, the mediating stair would then be lost, by which the spirit awake in matter winds, accepting the circuits of the middle way, by heavy toil and slow aeonic steps, reaching the bright miraculous fringe of God, into the glory of the Oversoul. My will, my call is there in men and things, but the inconscient lies at the world's grey back, and draws to its breast of night and death and sleep. Imprisoned in its dark and dumb abyss, a little consciousness it lets escape, but jealous of the growing light, holds back close to the obscure edges of its cave, as if a fond, ignorant mother kept her child tied to her apron strings of nescience. The inconscient could not read without man's mind the mystery of the world its sleep has made. Man is its key to unlock a conscious door, but still it holds him dangled in its grasp. It draws its giant circle round his thoughts. It shuts his heart to the supernal light. A high and dazzling limit shines above. A black and blinding border rules below. His mind is closed between two firmaments. He seeks through words and images the truth, and poring on surfaces and brute outsides, or dipping cautious feet in shallow seas, even his knowledge is an ignorance. He is barred out from his own inner depths. He cannot look on the face of the unknown. How shall he see with the omniscient's eyes? How shall he will with the omnipotent's force? O too compassionate and eager dawn, leave to the circling eon's tardy pace, and to the working of the inconscient will, leave to its imperfect light the earthly race. All shall be done by the long act of time. Although the race is bound by its own kind, the soul in man is greater than his fate. Above the wash and surge of time and space, disengaging from the cosmic commonalty by which all life is kin in grief and joy, delivered from the universal law, the sun-like, single and transcendent spirit can blaze its way through the mind's barrier wall and burn alone in the eternal sky, inhabitant of a wide and endless calm. O flame, withdraw into thy luminous self, or else return to thy original might on a seer summit above thought and world. Partner of my unhoured eternity, be one with the infinity of my power. For thou art the world mother and the bride. Out of the fruitless yearning of earth's life, out of her feeble, unconvincing dream, recovering wings that cross infinity, pass back into the power from which thou camest. To that thou canst uplift thy formless flight. Thy heart can rise from its unsatisfied beats and feel the immortal and spiritual joy of a soul that never lost felicity. Lift up the fallen heart of love which flutters, cast down desire's abyss into the gulfs. Forever rescued out of nature's shapes, discover what the aimless cycles want. There, intertwined with all thy life has meant, here vainly sought in a terrestrial form. Break into eternity thy mortal mold. Melt, lightning, into thy invisible flame. Clasp, ocean, deep into thyself, thy wave, happy forever in the embosoming surge. Grow one with the still passion of the depths. Then shalt thou know the lover and the loved, leaving the limits dividing him and thee. Receive him into boundless Savitri. Lose thyself into infinite Shraddhavan. O miracle, where thou beganst, there cease.